Welcome to Act Notes Tutorials. My name is Dan, and I am going to give you a quick tutorial on the requirements development steps. Requirements development is part of the overall systems engineering process. There are 6 steps associated with requirements development. The goal of these steps is the creation of solid requirements that can be used to develop a product to satisfy a need. These steps are: Step 1, gather and develop requirements. Step 2, write and document requirements. Step 3, check completeness. Step 4, analyze, refine, and decompose requirements. Step 5, verify and validate requirements. And Step 6, manage requirements. I will now go into more detail about each step. The first step of the requirements development process is to gather and develop the requirements. Within this step there are 4 steps. These steps are gather, develop, record, and prioritize. During gathering, you gather requirements from multiple places to include the concept of operations, stakeholder needs, objectives, and other external requirements. Next is, develop requirements. Once the requirements data has been gathered and processed, requirements need to be developed and documented. The requirements don't have to be perfect at this step, just documented, prioritized, deconflicted, and validated with all stakeholders. It's critical to have all stakeholders approve that the current documented requirements meet their needs. Next is, record requirements. As you gather requirements, use a form to capture them. This will help your requirements remain consistent in form and in terms of the information you capture for each. And finally, prioritize. One characteristic of excellent requirements management is that the requirements are classified and prioritized. When customer expectations are high, timelines are short, and resources are limited, a program manager wants to make sure the system contains the most essential requirements. Step 2 in the requirements development process is to write and document requirements. The requirements must be documented in order to establish a requirements baseline to start building a system and manage any changes. This step focuses on writing down the functional and performance level requirements into the appropriate requirements documents. The 4 main requirements documents on any defense acquisition program are: Initial Capabilities Document, Capability Development Document, Capability Production Document, and finally System Specifications. Step 3 in the requirements development process is to check completeness. The purpose of this step is to check that a complete set of requirements have been developed and documented. That the documents defines all system functions that are needed to satisfy the stakeholder needs with their associated performance, environmental, and other non-functional requirements. Requirements designers should go back to stakeholders with the draft requirements document and have them review it. They should ask if this is what they had in mind, or if they think any changes are in order. It's much easier to make changes now, while your project is still words on paper, than after development has begun. A good tool to use is to check for completeness is requirements tracing. This tool allows requirements designers, program manager, stakeholders, and engineers the ability to verify that a requirement meets objectives. The 4th step in the requirements development process is to analyze, refine, and decompose requirements. In this step you examine each requirement to see if it meets the characteristics of a good requirement. Each requirement is then decomposed into a more refined set of requirements that are allocated to subsystems and documented in the system requirements document. Newly derived requirements are expected to emerge from this process, which continues until all requirements are defined and analyzed. Requirements analysis, refinement, and decomposition is often a shared responsibility between the Acquisition Program Management Office and the development contractor. There are 11 steps associated with Step 4. These steps are: Assess each top-level requirement. Use functional or object-oriented analysis. Allocate interface requirements. Ensure verification requirements. Analyze risk reduction. Complete software requirements. Verify software. Ensure requirements flowdown. Verify hardware configuration items. Verify tools are in place. And finally, use operational scenarios. Please visit the webpage for more details on each step. The 5th step in the requirements development process is to verify and validate requirements. Each requirement must be verified and validated to ensure that they are the correct requirement. This ensures that the requirements meet the overall objective of the system and all stakeholder needs. Verification and validation should be done continuously throughout the development of requirements at every level and as part of baseline activities and reviewed during the system requirements reviews. The difference between verification and validation is: verify confirms that the requirements can meet the intended objective of what it meant for. Validate confirms that a requirement meets the intent of the stakeholder. The final step of the requirements development process is to manage requirements. The requirements have been accepted and a baseline is established by the stakeholders. Any changes to the requirements are controlled using a configuration management process. Managing requirements is a continuous process and is conducted throughout a system's life cycle and confirmed at each technical review. The purpose of this step is to assure that the requirements continue to meet the needs and expectations of its customers and stakeholders. Requirements should be maintained in a relational database, numbering standards, or other methods that show relationships. There are a number of relational databases on the market. Thank you for watching this tutorial on requirements development steps. For more information, visit the webpage. Congratulations for finishing this tutorial and thanks for visiting ACT Notes.